Yo, 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 what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormybman, and I am back welcoming you to Friday Night Chop Session with Stormybman. We're calling this one, it's episode 92. Let's get it started for this Friday, January 8th, 2021. It's the first chop session of the year, and we hope to bring you a good show. With no further ado, we're going to get right down into it. Oh boy. Yeah, what's good, people? I seem to be having some kind of delay in the system. I don't know what's going on, but you know, it happens sometimes. We're gonna see if we can work this out. We can get through this. Oh boy, here we go. Let's see what we got here. Give a moment to let some people come into the chat. What's really going on? Yo, it looks like we are back, family. I apologize for that delay. I apologize for the malfunctioning of the stream. But Stormy is still here. Some of you may still be here as well. But sometimes, hey man, this is man-made tech, right? It will fail because we are fallible. So, as I get on into this evening show, we were calling it Let's Get It Started. But it sounds like the title really should have been Let's Reboot It, huh? Because that's what basically had to happen here to get everything back online. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm not hearing any sound feedback at the moment. Let's see. If you guys can hear me, just put a 1 in the chat because I'm still trying to find out whether or not it's okay. All right. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. It's on a huge delay now. So but I'm here. Some of you are here as well. I thank those loyalists who are hanging in there with Stormy because, you know, I can't do anything about it when it decides it wants to act up like that. But just try to keep the ship sailing on, you know. As I open this one up, I don't know how long I'll be on because of the glitch, but I thought I would open up with some kind of acknowledgement for the community that is the LDBC. We've got a number of channels that are boxing centric and then hinting at a little bit more than that. I mean, we've got, you know, special content for adults. We've got special content for other sports than boxing, like basketball, brothers out there doing the things. We got political based content that's out there. We've got brothers out there that talk about the progression of the community and being self-sufficient. So many different avenues that branch us all together centrally, and I'm more than pleased to acknowledge, you know, being a part of this community. Stormybman is totally elated, you know, and I want to send a huge shout out to 78 Sports TV for what he has done with this, because without a platform like this, a number of us may still be out here taking unnecessary abuse and also being misdirected, because there's talent out here and a number of the people in the community have not been able to allow those talents to flourish until they started under the umbrella of the LDBC, like myself. So when I say these things and when I speak on them, I feel like a moment like this where interference tried to overcome and I found myself having to reboot it, give me a moment for pause to be able to come back and state what's not only necessary but what's meaningful. So with that being said, you know, like I said, this community is special. Founded by someone who recognized what was really, truly missing out here in the land of YouTube when it came to boxing talk and boxing created content. In just a little over a year, myself, I've been able to flourish out here, being a part of this process, and am finding and trying to create more and more ways to not only just give back, but to give more, to be more creative in this process. So with that being said, I hope that some of the others that are coming up just behind, because the goal is to have all of our content creators at 1,000 or more subs, but to hope that everyone can just latch on arm in arm and lock up and make us all a huge chain, a chain that cannot be broken by outside forces or the ignorance of outside forces and elements, because they work at you, they pull at you on a daily basis. And as long as you stand as a united front, you know that you've got one another's back, front, side, and we can prevail. Finally, I get a chance to see my brother Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens was able to jump on. What's going on with you, Reggie? Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. What's up, OG? What's happening?
Not much, man. Just ran into another one of those goofy little glitches, and I just had to reboot the system. And I just, when you reboot it, if you've gone live, unless you end it, it'll still be live even after it comes back on. So that's what I had to do. It took a couple moments to, get it through the reboot process. That's all. That's what I was waiting for. But I'm glad that you all stuck around, because, as I said before, me not being that computer savvy, I've learned a thing or two, because this happened one other time, and I just remember what I did the last time. So glad to see us up and running. But my opening remarks, as I was able to finally speak through the opening remarks, is just an acknowledgement for the unit of what the LDBC community has become. And a strong acknowledgement for that, because we do have soldiers, we do have potential creators out there that might be misled or even misdirected, but to rein them in and let them know, hey, as long as you're being a part of the creative process and doing something that is worthwhile to be cultivating and developing further in the community, it's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with being able to stay in your lane, but as long as it's not a detriment, but it's an asset. So that's what I was opening up talking about. Do you have anything you would like to offer before we get into boxing content about that?
No, just for people to do what's best for them, man, and do great quality and work. Keep it authentic to who you are, and like you said, don't get caught up in a lot of the BS.
Yeah,
but that's just my thoughts on that.
That's just like, with what you're doing over there on your channel with the book reading and everything like that. I mean, man, it's great to see such diversity and to be able to have political speak and have people come on and be about ways of finding avenues for brothers and sisters to be able to, continue to be progressive. I enjoy that. I like it. A lot of mornings, like I said, when you have your early, I'll call them early morning streams, but you can call them late night streams from where you are as far as the time. But you guys really engage in some very great discussions, and discussions that need to be had. So my hat's off to you, and don't stop doing what you do.
Oh, yes, indeed. I appreciate that. Oh, and it ain't going to stop.
Yeah. So I had written down a few items to talk about as the show is being called Let's Get It Started, because we're starting anew with 2021, hoping for some better things ahead in the sport of boxing. But I also wanted to ask you if you had some things that you, because I didn't get a chance to talk to you before today, if you had like a particular talking point that you might want to open the show up with this evening. Because I mean, I have some, but I want to be able to have an exchange with you, or anything you might have to offer, or something you were thinking about that you might wanted to talk about on today's show.
No, nothing in particular. I'll let the show roll. The only thing that stuck out to me was the talk of Bernard Hopkins and him speaking on Canelo versus Charlo all of a sudden. Now that they no longer have the cash cow over there, now for my first time is hearing them speaking about Canelo possibly fighting him. So is that the thought of maybe they had some fear of putting Canelo in there with the guy? Like, where does this conversation comes from all of a sudden? And, you know, that was kind of really the only thing I had. But also with everything's just so tied around that dang circle when it comes to that. It's kind of a triangle. I ain't going to say circle, but the Golden Boy on one side, WBC on one side, and Canelo at the top. And they move each and every which way along those axes and stuff, along the planes, and all this other crap that interferes with the sport. Now you got the WBC making excuses to give credit to Canelo, giving the Yildirim cat a chance at a title defense. Why is Yildirim even in position to have a title defense? Being even regardless of that fight being stopped, it still went to a decision. He was losing that fight. There was a cut involved in that fight, and I think he was fighting Darrell. So this guy's coming up off of a loss, not a no contest, not a no decision, but a loss. How is he getting the shot at the dang title? And why is Canelo being given these easy pads to, writing just felonious victories into a record book? And if that's the belt he took from Benavidez, if anything, give Benavidez a shot at that belt, being he hasn't lost his belt inside the ring. I mean, I don't get it. It's everyone giving this dude a free ride. And then now you got Golden Boy, who seems to kind of go on the other way, which most people within this world of boxing have been calling for Canelo and Charlo to get it on. Now that he's gone, now you have people within the management side or the executive side of the company talking about making the fight happen. I mean, this is the problem in there. But that's just my thoughts.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I had not heard much on that. I know I heard about him and Yildirim and the fact that he said he wanted to try to get 3 fights in this year. But when did Hopkins and those guys start talking about him getting in there with Charlo? Was that like today or yesterday or something?
Yeah, I seen it today on that. I think it's Boxing 24.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to take a look at Boxing 24 since I left work. I was looking at it earlier this afternoon, and I didn't see that on there earlier this afternoon. So I might have missed it or overlooked it, but I wasn't aware. I was aware, however, that there was some bumping of the gums by Canelo's trainer, Eddie Reynoso, making these comments about, if Canelo's not on someone's pound for pound list, that they may be a little bit touched or something for not having that type of consideration. But as it has been discussed through various channels, a lot of people don't want to give consideration to someone when they've been found out to have cheated at some point. You know what I mean? And the doubt comes in with cheating, that if they've been cheating and they got caught, how long were they cheating before getting caught? It brings everything under question. And then when you look at the fact that this man was fighting at his own catch weight division for the longest time, making people make a certain type of weight and fighting under certain type of conditions that were favorable to him, not facing people head up, you know. And I often go back to the thought process is that when they took that fight against Floyd Mayweather Jr., they thought that Floyd, what was Floyd, 35 going on 36 or something like that when they fought, they were probably banking on like, oh yeah, he's probably primed and ripe for the pickings because he's, you know, on the downside of the prime. But hey, you know, they picked wrong, okay? Because what they overlooked was this was the most dedicated guy of his generation in the sport. And then also possibly the most boxing savvy and talented guy of his generation as far as all-round capability. So no one has been touched or thinking outside of the box by leaving him off of pound for pound list. He could have readily been considered one of the best in the sport had he just manned up and fought certain individuals that he was supposed to fight when they were available to fight. I mean, at one time you had both of the Charlo brothers hanging right around 154, and he made certain to vacate that space as they were coming on. Then you had, you know, the likes of, you know, Andre, who was there as well. But he petitioned and he beckoned for Cotto to come up and fight him, you know. And it's like Cotto was a smaller man, although albeit an accomplished fighter. You know, again with the games and gamesmanship, where you picking and you giving a perception that you're doing something worthwhile when actually you're stripping away essentials, what will make it a true challenge for you. Then we started hearing about weight clauses and rehydration clauses and things like that. And of course that does no one any benefit, because if they're set by his camp, then you know that he's the one that is gaining the advantage off of it. So we watched this for years, and there have been some of the former Mexican fighters that have, you know, looked down and frowned upon him for all of the paths that have been granted him, and, you know, the opportunities that have been granted him to just kind of circumvent the sport and get away from challenges, but yet and still be considered someone who is high profile in the sport. Man, it's almost like, you know, a guy stands in the batter box and the pitchers throw him all the right stuff to hit out of the park or to make contact where his batting average is very high. But then they work hard as hell to strike everybody else out, and even the referee, the umpire, his strike zone is much smaller. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what's going on here? And we've seen it. We've seen it tremendously. And how you know that there's something wrong about it is because there are a number of the past Mexican legends that have said, hey, you know, no, this is not the way. So that is not biased. That's being sincere. And so Reynoso, who hasn't, what was he doing before he was working with Canelo? You know, and you know, he also may be working with Ryan Garcia right now, but he's got his work cut out for him with Ryan, because they may not be able to keep Ryan as safe as they were able to keep Canelo. But they're gonna try. But we'll see, you know. And for these people that are clamoring for a pound for pound list, it's like there's still other fighters, man. There's still other fighters. Matter of fact, one of the ones that he ducked, that I said could easily be number one. If not number one, he's number two. And that's Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo is the best fighter in boxing today as a champion who has proven that he can win a fight every kind of way. And who else can actually say that in the sport? I'll give you a chance to think about it, but you'll find that what I'm saying is very true. And the man is in his prime. You know what I mean? So this is what it is. But what are your thoughts, Reggie? Did you hear about what Mr. Reynoso had to say?
Yeah. Reynoso's problem is that there's people out here challenging their conquest. That was their whole mission. And like you brought up with Floyd, they thought they would find Floyd at the right moments. They thought the timer was right. They thought they'll find Floyd at a vulnerable state, age being a factor, hoping Father Time arrived when Canelo got in the ring. And it just so didn't happen, and he was embarrassed. So that kind of set them back. Now, as time moves forward, not only do they have challenges to this mission that they laid out for this dude, meaning kind of a ready-made path for him to look good, historic-wise, things begin to not look so good as these challenges come about. You got young fighters in here calling them out. Every fighter that has called him out to challenge him, and not even the best of boxing skill-wise, being the Laura and Trout, giving him good tests. Now you're dealing with fighters who add a little bit more than what Laura and Trout brought to him, and those being the Charlos, who also come in there with the same abilities plus power, and that's threatening to Canelo. Plus, these dudes are way, way bigger, and we already seeing outside of Canelo facing the difficulty with people with the type of rhythm and stuff as Floyd and the Lauras. Canelo has issues with people with a jab. And we've seen that in the two fights and the fights that are questionable, being in the tall 175ers he been in there. Ain't even just so much of their height, because they lay lazy on the jab, but the jabs are an issue for Canelo. A Charlo jab being at that height advantage, and the power difference versus the other guys that he was having issues with in their ability to move. They're worried about that and they're keeping away. But also the thing that challenged the conquest is there's a new base of fans that are vocal now, being us, black fans that don't come up out of Mexico without the heritage, who would challenge and bring about a standard to this game, which you don't see it from media. Media doesn't challenge things. Why? Because everybody within the sport are compromised by many things, and that being the influence of money, being Canelo's the supposed cash cow, them not wanting to mess off money. We've seen that when Canelo pops up hot for the dope. We think he gonna get made an example out of. He don't lose his belt. He just goes on a 6-month extension. That was some way out-ish. That was way out. And then to come back, he ain't on one of these strict programs we hear fighters being put into, and he goes right back into that same money fight in which they want to see with Triple G. But then the other crazy thing, I think he did drop a belt when he didn't want to challenge Triple G the first time. That's what turned a lot of the Mexican legends against him. It's him dropping the belt, and then to have the WBC chasing back after him because they want him around because he's supposed cash cow. So the problem Reynoso is having is people are challenging what they're doing. There ain't nothing in these last few fights since they've been to the zone. Ain't nothing look good. The Kovalev, people question, it ain't even just from here. You had celebrities that took to Twitter and challenged them. So already they got an issue with this new explosion with the voice of power coming out of YouTube. They had issues coming from that. And then you had many high-profile celebrities questioning that Kovalev versus Canelo performance. And now they're also questioning this performance when it came down to Caleb Smith. So he hasn't looked good. He hasn't been credited with anything. And it's starting to bug that dude with the fact that people question that. And also questioning him as a drug cheat. And the WBC and Las Vegas Commission are in collusion with that crap. Like they're all part of it. They didn't want to bring about too harsh of a sentence, 6 months, allow the dude. And I think the dude just went into surgery. So it was time for him to go and heal himself, as he had some kind of nagging injury or whatnot it was. So it was all beneficial to Canelo. It's been laid out for this dude in the sport before this current time was all of convenience. He could do no wrong. He could get away with nothing. no one would question him. His fans who have no standards wouldn't question anything with him because they loved the way it was. They had someone that represented them, someone who looked like them, national pride. And he's a supposed face of boxing after suffering an embarrassing classing inside the ring by an aged fighter they thought they can catch, who his boss couldn't defeat, who his boss is jealous of. And that's all it is. The conquest is being challenged and is being questioned. And Reynoso has an issue with that. And he's seeing that a lot of fans with standards, and it gets to them, and it throws off that plan. So that's what it is, man. Reynoso know what time it is, and he may have an issue with this current fighter who he has as a replacement, the heir apparent to Canelo, as the landscape doesn't look so easy breezy for him at all. Why? Because the fans with standards who draw question of what we don't want to see easy path type fights. You didn't put this dude in a situation to get some lower tier belt. It's time for him to fight with the top. And I love what Mike Tyson did to Reynoso's next cash cow. And that's putting him up in there with the Tank Davis talk. And we're going to see how that turns out. But that's my thoughts on that.
And I want to say this, Reggie. He's spoken that he wants to fight 3 times this year. And given who the opponents could be, it's quite possible he could fight 3 times this year. But if one of the opponents happens to be a Charlo, that probably wouldn't happen until the end of the year, because he's not trying to run into that smoke anytime soon. But they're not fooling me with what they're doing. Triple G is going to be one of those fights if he fights 3 times this year. And what they've managed to do, and I've seen it happen in the sport in the past, they have allowed this guy to age out and look on the slipping side of boxing. And you could just tell from his last outing that Triple G is nowhere near the fighter he was even when he faced Canelo the first time. And, you know, the age of a fighter in boxing is usually far more than the age of the average person, even the age of the average athlete, unless you're talking about someone who maybe runs track or something like in football, because when you start to break down or whatever, you go fast over that hill. And Triple G looked so bad in his last outing against his opponent. They are going to play that up in a manner of which, like, they're not even interested. And somebody's probably going to get in Triple G's ear to say, hey, you need to call for the fight, press. And then they're going to relent, and then it's going to take place. And he's going to go in there and knock Triple G out. And then that'll be like another feather in the cap for him as far as how they're trying to market him. Remember, when in Triple G's victory, they were saying that he broke Bernard Hopkins' record of title defenses, which was totally absurd because the dude had lost. He had lost the fight, man. Your title defenses end when you suffer the loss and you start all over again. The Zone really was talking about that, and they put it in the papers and everything. But that's okay, because he's being strung out for this man, for Canelo. And Canelo's acting like he don't want it, and, you know, he has no interest in him, and he's been there, done that, and everything. But let me tell you something. He knows if he takes that third fight, he's going to knock that dude out. And how much is it going to look like, oh, he's great, right? But the thing is, it's not that he's so great. It's like how far the other guy has slipped off. But in today's game of boxing, it's just like that everything that went on in the White House over the past few years. Remember, they used to tell you about, what do they call it? Alternative facts, right? They talk about alternative facts, and alternative facts are what? Lies. They just dress it up in words, but that's lies. So we're seeing a career of it from this guy, and it's something to be aware of and take note of. But yeah, moving on to the other guy that is out of that camp and coming up under his wing is Ryan Garcia. Now, this whole thing about Ryan Garcia and, you know, what's next for him and everything. What's next for him is to get his butt in the gym and work on defense. That's what's next for him, because he showed against a guy that can't crack that he could lay down easy. And he's in a division where it's more guys there that can crack than not. So, and what is up with Gary Russell Jr., you know, because he is the man that can actually test all of those young men, you know, at that division and everything. And I wish that he pressed that envelope a little stronger, because somebody's going to have to fight him, you know. And even as he ages, he still has a skill set that is highly competitive and will offer anyone trouble. And you take a guy like this kid who all he relies on is trying to hit somebody with that big punch he has, which is a left hook, but he doesn't know how to get out of the way of the opponent's punches, and he doesn't know how to box. So that's a recipe for disaster when you talk about someone so limited, huh? When Tommy Morrison was knocking people out with his left hook, it was looking great, wasn't it? Until they started hitting him back on his chin, huh? And then he found himself on the canvas, sometimes in early as the first round, huh? And out of business in the first round. Michael Bent, anybody? So those kind of things will happen. There's plenty of history around us that teaches us what you're seeing is not always what you're seeing. And this young man has so much more to work on that they may be able to skate on the outskirts of danger momentarily, but sooner or later, he's going to have to put up. And remember, as he goes up in weight, it's only going to get more difficult. Huh? It's only going to get more difficult. Unless they decide to do like what's been done with this young man Conlon, huh? Where they go and they pick people and they say, you know, they go outside the numbers. And when I say outside the numbers, you say the top 20, and they go outside that and start pulling people in for him to be showcased against. But only that will last so long. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's what I see when it comes down to the Reynoso camp, and he's going to get exposed too, because he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I never heard him give Mr. Rye one direction about moving his damn head, keeping his hands up, huh? Whereas the move on his feet, because he can't, huh? He's like a mannequin out there with rollers under his feet. That's what he is. But some people may not like that, but that's what it is. And when you get in there with someone who is fleet of foot, who is agile and athletic, huh? Who has rhythm and perpetual motion, like my brother Curtis Anderson likes to say, what's going to become of the king? I'll tell you what's going to become of the king. He'll be dethroned, abdicated, will be the throne. You got anything else on that, Reggie?
No, I agree with you. Dethroning is coming very soon for the dude.
Very soon.
I think it may be useful for him, because the one thing he's getting by with that he's not correcting, it may need to be exposed. Well, Luke Campbell did expose it. Now he's going in here against more serious punches inside this game. And also, it's going to have to teach him. He has to get in here with serious competition, so that way he doesn't reach. He can do it while he's still young, because he can still bounce back from one of these early losses. But going in here, he doesn't set up anything. It's very easy to predict this dude. Once you pick up on the timing that with the guy. He throws it like I think Kurt was using that the expression last time we talked about. He throws everything too hard. Everything is too hard. There's no pace to any of his punches. There's no setup behind it. You know, that left hand's coming out wide, followed by the right hand. Left hand out wide, right hand. And there's openings in between there. Only thing with Campbell is Campbell couldn't match him on speed, but Campbell could have used that jab. And the other thing, being he doesn't do head movement, the thing that caught him is Campbell would throw out the fake down to the body. Ryan's defensive reaction is to react with his hands, blocking it down. A right hand or left hook is there all day. And I think that's any fighter studying, which they're going to study tape on Ryan, being the fact he doesn't move his head, he doesn't have too much side-to-side movement, is just faking him to where he's dropping those hands down. He has kind of a reactive mechanism to react into certain things, to where he did that with what's that guy, Luke Campbell, quite a bit. And that's how he ended up getting caught. It's Campbell fake down to the body, he catches this dude. Make him move those hands to try to block it. That's just his instinctive habit of doing that, and you're going to catch him. Now he's going to go in here against these guys who can jab, move well, and they're going to mix him up. And Tank may be one of the guys. Tank can roll up under some stuff. He leave a punch out there hanging, go out wide. His body is open there, going out wide with a hook, or an uppercut is there. But he's also going to probably be a challenge for Tank as well. But when he moves up to the Devin Haney's and the Teofimo Lopez, he's going to have some issues there. But that's my thoughts on it.
And how about Mr. Luke Campbell, by the way? This man, he came out with an interview. I don't know if you saw it, but he came out with an interview where he was talking about his disappointment, you know, and how the fight went for him and everything. And he's kind of like licking his wounds right now. But, you know, sometimes guys have to learn a lesson in the ring. Sometimes they can learn before they get in the ring. Sometimes they learn after they've come through the process like he did. This fight was there for him. It was there for him. And he could have done a tremendous job of turning the tables around for his countrymen with a successful effort here. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, man, when you have to have a desire to want it so much more than what somebody can do, like with a body shot or even a shot to the chin. You know, Larry Holmes took a bomb of a punch from Ernie Shavers, an overhand right that looked like a wrecking ball finishing off the first portion of a skyscraper when it swings into it. He hit the canvas like a man who had been shot. Somehow, he managed to crawl from where he fell in that near corner up the ring apron, shaking his head, clearing his head, trying to get himself together to resume and go back into the battle. He ended up stopping Ernie Shavers. But the thing about it was the punch that he took was the KO punch. That punch would have knocked out practically anybody else in the division. And it was still early enough in the fight where Shavers had that type of power. Sometimes you have to suck it up. And Larry Holmes is a great example to use because Holmes has fought many men who tried to take that title from him. Mike Hercules Weaver, someone I interviewed on here on the channel, and he had a tremendous performance against Larry. Staggered him, had him going into the ropes and everything, and Larry knocked him out. You know, being hit hard, that happens. And as a fighter, you have to understand and make that determination that at some point you're going to get hit. You just try not to get hit too often, and you try not to get hit too cleanly where you won't be able to recover or come back. A number of fighters don't understand that aspect of boxing. This kid had his opportunity, Luke Campbell, especially on the heels of what transpired between Canelo and Smith. You know, at what point do you decide you're going to make history? You know, when Buster Douglas faced Mike Tyson, he was asked in the post-fight, what did you think? No, it was in the pre-fight. He was asked at the press conference, what do you think about Mike? He's a scary guy or whatever. And Buster was like, I thought when, I got in there at the press conference with him and we stood face to face and we were taking photos and stuff, he was like, I just saw a short man. He said he just saw a short man. Buster was 6'4", 230 plus pounds. Mike was 5'9.5", maybe. We need to put those little lifts in those little black shoes, make him a little bit taller, and had a short reach. He was thick around the neck, but Buster could hit too. Buster had hand speed too. Buster had mobility too. And on that night, he had spirit. He got knocked down by Mike. He pounded the canvas like, dang. Took the count, got up within the count. The bell rang. That kind of helped him, after he got up, the bell rang. But he went right back to work in the next round. People had thought Mike was going to come out and go for him at that point, and Buster started laying into Mike and had Mike teetering on his feet before the end of the bell of that next round after being dropped. So I'm mentioning that to say this. When a fighter decides, I'm going to get it tonight, I'm going to, work for it, it's a thing that you can see play out where it's like they're not going to be denied. Earl Spence did it when he fought Kell Brook. He went over on foreign soil, took his title away from him. Message and lesson to Regis Prograis. That's how you do it. But the thing is, there's not enough of that understanding because there's not enough of the teaching. And if you think the guys like the Reynosos are the ones to show you the way, then you understand totally why a man as Derek James can be overlooked as a coach of the year when he's done more with two men than these guys have done with anybody. Just think about it. So Campbell, yeah, you should be licking your wounds. You should be looking in the mirror and feeling sorry for yourself and everything, because ain't nobody else gonna do it. You had the opportunity in the palm of your hands, bro, and you let it seep through the fingers like it was water. And at the age that you are now, you'd be lucky for someone to ever call you up and say, hey, you want to fight? And people will remember you taking that count on your knees. Now remember, he wasn't lied on the floor like sprawled out. Remember De La Hoya? De La Hoya, when he took the one from Bernard Hopkins, he went down to his knees over on his forehead, then he rolled over on his back. Which was a lot different than what you saw from Mr. Campbell. That was a conscious decision. That's why I say what I said. Because there's a lot of different ways that guys perform after getting hit with a liver shot. And you remember Arturo Gatti against Mickey Ward? You would have thought that Mickey Ward stabbed him with a knife. But something about Arturo wouldn't let him go down. He wouldn't go down. He fought harder. You see? Go back and look at his fight against Wilson Rodriguez. Wilson Rodriguez hit him with that left hook to the liver. Gotti wobbled all over the place and everything. Comes back and knocked Rodriguez out with a left hook to his chin. Spirit. You have to have more than just bringing the talent that you have to the ring, conditioning, those kind of things. Sometimes you got to reach deep inside of yourself, and if it's not really there, you got to find someplace else to bring it from. The crowd, a pretty woman sitting out there looking at you perform, the referee who's looking at you like he ready to stop it. When you going to think about these things? Tomorrow is another day, but when it's happening right now, that's what you have to do. So, what are your thoughts, Reggie, on Mr. Campbell? Did you see his interview? Did you hear what he was talking about?
Nah, man, that sucker, man. I don't even want to see nothing from Campbell. None of them cats that come from over there, man. It's just like they don't have the will to want to win anything. They don't have the will to want to be great. I think they used to being domestic pub type fighters is what it seemed like the UK market is. None of them want to be over there. None of them want to be great. There's no Lennox Lewis's. There's no Nigel Benns over there anymore. There's none of that, man. All that stuff has died off, and it's coming to the new millennium, and they bunch of camera phone fighters over there. They just don't have it, man. And like you were saying, Luke Campbell should have showed a will if he really wanted it. You got your second opportunity to try to get yourself in position, and you fold up like that. You folded up, and then you had this moment in which you hurt this fighter, and you never went for the kill. His instincts ain't there, and for him to look back on it, I mean, if he's looking back on anything, he need to be thinking about leaving the sport. That's what he needs to reflect on, because it's just not there. It's just not in the heart of a lot of guys that's over there. The only thing they got over there is Josh Taylor, and Josh Taylor's a dude who's exudes a different level of confidence than the other cats over there. The other cats don't show no type of heart, no type of will. You got Eubanks who done stepped up out, or he comes over here to try to challenge himself. He may not be the greatest, but at least the guy has some heart and some type of courage, and he looks to stand upon his pride as a man going inside of these fights. I mean, these Luke Campbell's in them, man.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Reggie, because with Eubank Jr., because, you know, his dad wouldn't come over here. But his dad's adversary, Nigel Benn, did. You know, he came over here and stopped Nigel Benn in the first round or second round, something like that. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. If Kurt is still out there listening, he might be able to correct me. But I think it might have been a first round knockout where he stopped Nigel Benn on national TV. I mean, Nigel Benn stopped Iran Barkley, I wanted to say. Iran Barkley in one round on national TV. And he came over here a couple other times. But that was the difference. And you could see the difference in how he performed in the fight. His fight against Gerald McClellan. Gerald McClellan basically knocked him out in that first round. He fell through the ropes, and they gave him a lot of time to get back in there. But he did climb back in, got up and finished the round, and started coming back with his own. And so much to the degree that he was evening the fight up against McClellan, who had been knocking everybody out within a couple of rounds. So Nigel Benn was a special fighter, a little bit more special than the other guys that were around him at that time. He wasn't the most skillful guy, but he had overflowing heart and determination and will. I remember that after his first fight with Chris Eubank, when the referee had stopped, they were doing the post-fight, and I talked about this before. And Eubank's over there giving the interview, and he's talking to the reporter. He was like, "Man, this guy cut my tongue open, you know." And he was like, he's like, "What a brutal fighter." He was like, "I give him all the credit and respect in the world." And the reporter, ringside reporter, was, you know, asking him questions and stuff. And Chris Eubank stopped the interview. He was like, "Man, I got to go to the hospital." He said he had to go to the hospital. He was done giving interviews because that fight was brutal between the two of them. And he just overcame Nigel at that time. But that's what it's all about. You got to have spirit, man. You got to have spirit. If the spirit ain't there, you might as well be dead, man. That's it. That is it. But yeah, that's what I had to say about Mr. Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, he has like a defeatist type mindset. You can come at him with any level of confidence. You can bark at him, and he'll probably tuck his tail. He'll tuck his gloves under his ass. But you just see it from a lot of those dudes.
But I wanted to mention this little gem one more time, Reggie. It seems like, I think it was Boxing Scene? They named their 2020 Fight of the Year my favorite fight of the year, Jose Zepeda and Ivan Baranchyk, bro. That was interesting when I read that this morning. That they're calling that their 2020 Fight of the Year, and I had said, I will always find a way to reference this fight or go back to it because it was a throwback. It was the type of thing that people pay to see, even though they did this in the bubble with no audience, which is a travesty because people should have been in the seats for this type of performance. Five rounds and 8 knockdowns, 1 not counted. An amazing thing, Reggie. Both men touching the canvas 4 times. I cannot speak enough about that. This is what a movie fight. You know what I mean? Like when you saw Rocky fighting Drago, that's what that's the kind of brawl that you saw. And it wasn't necessarily a brawl because they were boxing and, punching and landing and scoring, and it just turned into that type of thing, teeter-totter type of event. And to see boxing scribes get it right. You can always go on what you like. You can always go on what can appeal or whatever. But this was actually one of those that you didn't have to. And remember, I had talked to, who was that? Fred, Barbershop Conversations. And he said he has still not watched that fight, Reggie. Can you believe that? I told him, I said, Fred, you got to watch that fight. You got to watch it. Even if you don't like the guys who are fighting, just watch it, And I'm going to have to appear in one of his chats and ask him if he watched it yet. But give your final thoughts on that for this moment, Reggie, because I'll find something down the line to come back and mention these two guys again. But your final thoughts on that being the fight of the year, even if it wasn't your fight of the year, Boxing Scene's fight of the year.
Man, that's my fight of my life, man. That's the best fight of my life. Man, because it was Tim Bradley and Provodnikov was one of the best fights I ever seen in my life. And this one, I gotta move Tim Bradley and Provodnikov to the best decision fight. But this fight right here is the overall best fight I ever watched in my years of watching boxing. I don't care if it's my favorite fighter been in the fight. He ain't got nothing on this fight between these two. And these dudes put on a spectacular. Maybe they don't have to turn it into a documentary. They got to do something with that, something about that fight, even with Tim Bradley fight. But this fight right here, Tim fight, man, ain't got nothing on it. Then the way to cap it off with the way that it ended was Zepeda knocking him out. And even that knockout got to go in within the top 3 knockouts of the year as well. Like to finish the guy off like that, oh my God. You couldn't ask for nothing better. And it was done and it was done quicker than microwave popcorn. I mean, they worked quick, man. They got in there and got out. Ain't no overtime like they said. They made sure they got it and got the heck right on out of there. And they both were determined because what was on the line. This wasn't a regular fight. These dudes are looking to become champions. And they showed that. They displayed that. They went out for it. Baranchyk loaded up on the temple and was trying to knock this dude Zepeda's head off. Zepeda had to pay him back, and it was looking bad for Zepeda. That was the other thing, and he started to come back. I mean, that fight was off the hook. Not no rock'em sock'em robot, but regardless of people want to label that fight was brilliant.
Yeah, one of the most interesting elevator fights in history was Foreman and Lyle. What a great call by Howard Cosell when George Foreman got, dropped to the canvas. He went face first, didn't look like he would get up, left blood on the mat from his face when he went down, and he gets back up and he puts Ron Lyle down. And Howard Cosell yelling, "George, fall back! George, fall back! George, fall back!" It was like, dude, Howard Cosell could get in the moment, man. I'm telling you. And it's just years later when, what's his name? Joe Goosen was on TVKO, and Burt Cooper and Michael Moore. Same thing. That fight right there was an elevator fight. Both guys went down twice. Burt Cooper put Michael Moore down in the first round, and it looked like it was going to be a first round knockout. And Moore got up and was able to finish the round, and a few seconds later, he had Burt Cooper on the canvas. Man, it was crazy. And that was like, that type of thing that when you see it, it's like, more please, more please. And these guys, what was really great about the fight with Baranchik and Zepeda was the ref didn't get in the way. That guy, Kenny Bayless, he was not in the way at all. It was just, great to see the action without someone taking influence. And that was my final comment about it, because sometimes a ref can intervene. He makes the determination that the guy has taken too much. But no, this came to an end. That fight ended because Baranchik was knocked out that last time he went down. His leg bent back under him and everything, and he was just totally unconscious. And they had to, remember, Reggie, they had to take a moment to get him roused, waking up again and everything, smelling salts. And they should have called. You were calling for this too, because I remember in your life, he's like, "See, this is what I'm talking about. They don't put the damn oxygen in there with the guys and stuff in America, which they should. Have an ambulance waiting outside, which they should. That's where the UK really does a great job of taking care of their fighters, man. But what a great fight, man. I'm glad to have watched it. Glad to have shared it with you on your call, and that's on your former channel, isn't it? So we can't go back and see that, right?
Yeah, I think it was back in the time. Because I used to run both channels live together, so I might have on this new channel as well.
Yeah, I would like to go back, and if it's still available, pull the fight up on YouTube and just listen to your call of it again, because that was an exciting night, man. And for boxing to be still at that stage where it was trying to come back due to the pandemic and everything, it was a great night of boxing, man. Great night of boxing. One of the things I'd like to move on to next, Reggie, is a little subject on AB, the problem. He's back in training and everything. He's got a fight scheduled, and a lot of people are saying since this last run-in with Johnny Law, he's kind of rededicated himself, and I guess he's been hearing the people talk about him and things like that, and he may be wanting to come back to not just prove to others but prove to himself that he is not a waste of talent or a waste of time. There's been video of him out there working out and doing his routines in the gym and whatnot or whatever. But my question to you is it too little, too late for the problem, AB? What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna say heck yeah, and all it is a money fight. He's not rededicated himself to boxing. He might as well get this check and go ask Mike Tyson, can he get along in the little sports league Mike Tyson got going, because he ain't about to take this thing serious. He's put himself in some very, very bad financial situations because he can't control he couldn't control himself outside the ring. And this is why it's important where people make too many excuses for these young fighters who we like, who come off as charismatic, but people see these signs in folks because people have lived life, they experience, they observe and seen things. They can see the slightest things. Ain't none of these tricks they doing new. Ain't nothing new about the way a lot of these dudes live their lifestyle, and people can point to it. And just like I not to go away from him, but people point that out with the Earl Spence things. And a lot of people play on the protection programs wanted to speak against that. No, he ain't doing this. People overblowing. And then the trainer out of the Mayweather gym, Nate, spoke on it. People try to get on him, but people seen this. And this is a dude who lived a life of where it ruined his career. And then later we hear where Earl admitted. People see these things, man. As you live through life, you add in your own situations. If you haven't lived through them, your own observed situations in life. And you can see things. And people said this crap about Adrian Broner. But the problem with Adrian Broner, there's just people. There's nothing wrong with being hard on people about life. That way they avoid the bumps and bruises. And me, I'll be like staunch about that because, like I say, I got homies who, matter of fact, I got a homie who I communicate through Instagram because somehow I got a phone up in prison who's serving life up in there, who I didn't saw how he was moving in life and try to avoid it. My brother who called me out of prison, who I watched do certain things, he was screwing up in life, getting by with it. You see these things. People saw this in Adrian Broner. The problem I always had an issue. The first time I remember seeing AB on maybe his second or third fight, and I seen AB, and when I seen him tell his dad to brush his hair, I was like, man, what's up with this fool? And then start to see kind of this behavior, and I'm like, damn, this fool got nothing but yes people around him. And I'm like, if his father's out here combing his hair like he the homeboy and stuff, I'm like, yeah, this kid gonna be wild. Like, same crap I was saying with Rolly. I see the same thing in Rolly. Like, so you see these things. So it's a money fight for him. He done screwed his life up doing all these ill acts. He owes unnecessary money. Why are you paying people who ain't spent one day up in the gym this kind of dang money? And now you go in here to fight, to risk your life for a court to make a decision that before you even touch that check, a huge percentage of it is gone. But he ain't rededicated himself to the sport. It's just to make that money, to pay off these legal debts. And he has all type of internal issues, family-wise. And it's unfortunate because people seen it. They try to talk him out of, to avoid these pitfalls. And that's the problem with young folks. We all make the mistakes. I'm just blessed in my life. I ain't make the same mistakes I've seen so many people go through. So many people have been in positions of $1 million lifestyles and screw them up because they want to listen to folks, because they surround themselves around yes people who just want to be part of the function, want to party, lying to kick it. I ain't a lie to kick it type. But I don't see nothing serious coming out. He may beat the opponent, but to go on a run and to get himself back into contention for something, it ain't happening. He gonna do that in Mike Tyson's Thriller Network. But that's all I got.
No, that's good stuff, man. And the reason I kind of was snickering, laughing at when you first began to talk, because you actually expressed my sentiments, but I just like hearing it come out of somebody else's mouth, because it's like I feel the same way. It's like this guy has had more than enough time to turn a corner and get on a different path. Some guys just remain off track. You know what I mean? And hey, man, you know, there's an old saying: everybody ain't gonna be saved. You understand? So it's like you just have to deal with what's, on your plate. And on his plate is a lot more stuff, It's just, and who better could show and tell him than Mike Tyson? It's like, listen, hey, it is what it is. But no, I don't think that it's going to turn around for him. I would love to be wrong, but history just tells us things about people like that. You'll see them. I often wonder. I'll give you an example. Lately, we've been seeing excuse me, lately we've been seeing, like, in the news and everything, like, various people going through ordeals, like a woman killing her girlfriend, or a woman killing her man, or whatever. And you see it on the news report, the byline, it's like so and so killed so and so over whatever, and it'd be like, what? And it's like, you know, so and so was killed on Facebook Live. What? You know, that kind of thing. And you see it today, right? You see it on the news today, and you could be talking to somebody about it. It's like, man, that's crazy, ain't it? It's messed up, whatever, right? And then tomorrow, the person you was talking to do the same thing. So what is really going on with people, huh? And AB is that guy. He's seen before him, there was plenty of other people falling off the tracks and everything. And then he going right on off the track himself. And it's like a decision. It's a conscious decision. These guys don't realize, man, sometimes you have a very short window of opportunity. And when you've managed to get your foot through that threshold of opportunity, it's what you make of it, what you take and become, you know, within the next instant. And so many just like the bright lights, huh? They like the glitter, huh? And they like the jingling of the coins and the paper, huh? But at some point, as a fighter, you have to have something else. Something else to reach for, something else to covet, to desire. And that is something that should be just out of reach. Just out of reach. It's like not something that you could readily get up and go in the fridge for, like Riddick Bowe when he put a fridge in his bedroom. You know, I'll say that again. He put a fridge in his bedroom. The sucker didn't even want to walk down those stairs or go down the corridor or wherever, you know, however his house was designed. He said, no, put a custom fridge in the bedroom and possibly a little stove over there too, huh? So he could lay down and scramble his eggs in the skillet and then just flip them over. Hey, listen, we just know that these guys, all of them ain't gonna be saved. And you know who else I see in that group? He might not be doing the things that AB has done, but Mr. Ryan, he ain't gonna be on that horse very long, huh? And when it come tumbling down, and it will, you know, you just better hope there's not a bed of thorns on the surface for where he lands. You know, that's all I got to say about that, Reg. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that AB is, you know, he's in it for the money, and a lot of times when you're in it like that, it don't work out. You know, it don't work out very well for you. So that's what it is, man. That's what it is. But I wanted to also speak on the Dream, Devin Haney. This brother here. I'll let you, Reggie, I'll let you talk about him opening up this discussion on the Dream. What are your thoughts of he as a fighter before we go, you know, further and further? But what are your thoughts of the Dream as a fighter?
I think he's highly skilled and a real dedicated fighter. He's really dedicated to the sport.
Yeah, I mean, so do I. There were, you know, there were some questions that I had about him, and then I looked, you know, further into his background, and when they took him, like, you know, across the border to turn pro and, you know, start getting an education early on in that manner, I couldn't help but think of the film Creed 2. you know, where they did the same thing with Michael B. Jordan's character, Creed, you know. They took him south of the border, and he got a chance to learn some things that you just don't pick up in the normal climate of boxing. But with the Dream here, I got a little bit of a problem with where the focus might be with the material. The material, like in his last fight, which you see him wearing his top here, you know, that was a very expensive top he had on, and his trunks and everything, designed very nice. Look good. Look good for the part, you know. But as a boxer, he's pretty damn good as well. I got a problem with the fact that he has yet to have that defining moment where we can really see how good he is. But it hasn't happened because there are people avoiding. Now, there's one man who said he's not avoiding, and that's Gary Russell Jr. And he's been saying, hey, let's make it or whatever. And then they did go back and forth through social media when they were kind of like bantering as if they wanted to negotiate something through social media. But everybody knows that that's not the way to handle business in boxing. The best deals are made in the closed door, and, you know, no ears outside of the two subjects. Just like when Floyd and Pacquiao finally did their thing and made their fight happen. You know, there was no Bob Arums around and Freddie Roaches and none of that stuff. It was just those two men met up in that hotel room, and they ironed out a deal between one another, and the fight took place. Devin is in a position where his skills may be above average, but it speaks more of the guys around him that are his contemporaries. They don't want to fight him right now because a lot of them don't work like he works at the craft. Now, Gary Russell is a different sort because he's a professional fighter. He's a pro. He's been around. He's the longest reigning champ in the sport right now, right? So it's like he has a different pedigree and approach to the sport. But listen, man, I'm going to say this right here. If Devin want to prove himself, go fight Gary Russell Jr. If he fights Gary Russell Jr. and he beats him, nobody will be able to say anything. But if he can't beat Gary Russell Jr., then he's still got work to do. Because Gary could potentially beat he and those other contemporaries of his. But I would like to see him, Dad, take the training wheels off like I did a Tuesday tussle. It was like, you know, hey, you got to lose the training wheels, right? But go in there, fight this guy, beat this guy. And I'm not saying he's going to, but I'm giving the directive here. It's like, go in there, beat that guy. What can anybody say? You defeated a veteran fighter, championship fighter, 5 years long, 6 years long reigning, and it's like you're one of the best in the sport. What would anybody be able to say? It's not a what do you call it? A showcase. It's not a fight that someone will have just put out there for him or whatever. It's like that's the type of test that you have to pass. You know, Floyd had to fight Gennaro Hernandez, and then he later fought my man, the Drunken Master. You know, in those type of fights, he was proven, you know, to be the real deal. So by the time he ended up in there with Diego Corrales and, you know, all of those other guys, you know, he was so much better and primed and prepared in a manner of which they were not. he looked head and shoulders above his contemporaries. But what do you think about my sentiments, Reg, that if he just go ahead, face Gary and see what he really got? Because if he loses to Gary, he can reset. He could, get better, go back to the drawing board or whatever. But if you're trying to walk that line, hoping to not slip or whatever until you make a certain amount of money, you still will have to suffer from, like, when one of those guys, if they defeat you, what does it look like? Plus the upside. You have to always look at the upside. What will he carry into his future by defeating the likes of a Gary Russell? What are your thoughts, Reggie, on that?
No, I think it'll be a good challenge for Devin. And Devin Haney's career really lacks the level of competition. I mean, he got Gamboa on there, but what are people saying about the Gamboa fight? See, a guy coming up off an injury, he's Tank's leftovers. He needs to separate himself from fighting a fighter that's someone's leftovers and getting in there with Gary Russell. Gary Russell ain't too much viewed as Lomachenko's leftovers. That's totally separate from what happened. He going in here against Gary, like you said. Gary's been on a 5-fight run, defending champion. That'll be a good contest for him. There's a lot of build around it. Why chase up after these dudes who ain't trying to give you a fight? And that's the problem with a lot of these fighters. They sit here, run around begging people who they think have opened the path toward boxing that's focused around them. No, create it to where you shift that back. Everything doesn't remain the same. That's what these fighters have to learn. You don't need to chase after these dudes who constantly show you that they're not going to fight you at this moment. But you start heating up things in your own lane, it'll create a dynamic to where that collision course, it can't be escaped. And that's what he needs to do. Fighting Gary Russell and going in there and showcasing himself will open the doors for him. And the other thing that I think that where they messed up, it was early on, it was a good decision to go to that DAZN and Eddie Hearn thing. But now that has played its course. He should have been on more of this American televised market. Should either been here on free TV, under one of those network type contracts, so he can kind of spread his brand, or he could have been on Showtime, but he would have been better off working with the PBC. Understand why these dudes, and that's the thing, people bite their hands when they don't want to work over here with someone who looks like them, who has created a protection within this game to balance it and make it more of a fair opportunities for these dudes with Al Heyman. I mean, not saying Eddie Hearn has done them dirty, but Eddie Hearn has done them dirty because Eddie Hearn got several black fighters over there who haven't gotten opportunities. And we see how he treats fighters once they suffer a defeat. He begins to write folks off. So it's time for them to spread their wings away from that DAZN thing, get over here on the televised network to be seen, to have that fight broadcasted, because on top of beating people, you still need a name behind you. You got to find some way to gain attraction behind putting the name behind yourself. I mean, Devin Haney's known. It ain't like he's an unpopular fighter, but he needs to build up on that. And especially with being material seems to be the order of the day with them, he may want to consider that. But him and Gary Russell got to get back into that contract talk. Forget the Ryan Garcia stuff and the Teofimo. Make them come chase after you, or make them open their mouth enough to where you make them either they're bluffing or they got to move forward with their decision of what they talk and getting inside the ring with you. Other than that, Gary Russell was over there. They all talked all that mess, had the boxing world really amped up to pull the rug up under us. So I agree with you on that one. Him and Gary should get back in there. That contract negotiation needs to get back in there. Both sides got to make these concessions. There shouldn't be no big talk of, I'm the A side and none of that, because neither one of them are that. So they need to go in here. It can be 50-50 split because they both need each other. But that's my thoughts on that.
And let me take you a little bit down memory lane for history a little bit. Everybody remembers the wonderful fight that took place between Thomas Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard, right? I mean, Thomas Hearns was 22 years old when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard, and Leonard was 25. So a lot like Tank and Devin and T.O. and Ryan, all of these guys, Shakur, they're all within that. That's why I say they're contemporaries. They're all around that, right? But Sugar Ray Leonard in that super fight beat Tommy Hearns in a wonderful 15 round fight. But what a lot of people don't realize is this, and Kurt Sugar, shout out to Kurt Sugar out there. He said this before, and I actually align my thoughts with he on this. Sugar Ray Leonard would not have defeated Tommy Hearns if he had not lost that fight to Roberto Duran. That first fight that he lost to Roberto Duran, which was a decision, by the way. It wasn't like Duran knocked him out or something like that, but it was a hard, tough, grueling fight fought in Montreal, where Duran was able to lure Leonard in the type of brawl that he excelled at. And no one had seen Leonard fight that type of a fight over 15 rounds before. And the fight was close. As I said, the decision could have gone for Leonard, but it went for Duran. And it humbled Leonard, who at that, prior to the fight, had been the golden boy of that era. He was commanding great salary, hadn't come out with Olympic gold medal and this and that. He was America's darling. He was on TV commercials. He was doing it, man. He was the man. But it humbled Leonard. And not in the sense like, you know, sit down, son, but it was a thing where it's like the book on he hadn't been written yet. He had to come back from adversity. He had had so many wonderful things happening for him that the loss to Duran put things in proper perspective. So he imagined like, hey, I got to get this guy back in the ring. But he knew some things about Duran too. Duran blew up in weight between fights. And if he could get him right back in the ring for a rematch, you know, 4 to 6 months later, that he could fight a different type of fight and not be drawn into the type of fight that Duran wanted, and to be able to compete from what was more advantageous for Leonard. And he did that, and he won that fight, which instantly regained his confidence, but he also gained something as far as experience. He knew that he couldn't just physically beat people. He had to use this up here. And see, this is why I say that you take a talent like Devin, he can take that gamble against Gary, because even though Gary could defeat him, I think it would, if Gary were to win, it would be by decision. I don't think it would be by stoppage. But what a great education he could gain by fighting a veteran fighter, champion caliber fighter, because if he whoops Gary, even though Gary wouldn't have that championship at that weight, if they fought where Devin is, but the payoff of a victory, how much confidence could he gain from that? If he lost, how much experience could he gain from that? Nobody out of his contemporaries have what Gary have as far as experience and talent. So it's nothing to be afraid of at the top level of the sport. So that being said, you go out there and you go for that. If you are victorious, you have just that much more of a peak to stand on. And now the guys are looking up at you. If it happens to be a defeat, you go back to school and you learn from what was your deficit in the fight. What was that which you were, suffering from, and that he had an advantage over you and things of that nature. That's where real teaching comes in. But see, the men of today are too afraid to learn, okay? And they're too afraid to take an ass whooping, huh? They don't mind whooping other guys' asses that don't belong in the ring with them, But when somebody is competitive enough to hand you some, then everybody don't want nothing. They full. Their plate is clean. I don't want no more. Huh? See, and that can't fly in the sport of boxing. You can have a couple of guys like that in the sport, but you can't have everybody who got a title belt like that. That's freaking ridiculous. How many belts are there? 6? You know, it's ridiculous looking at these men running around thumping their chest, talking about I'm the best and this and that, and they not facing the other guy. And remember, when it was one title, those guys it'd be one champion, and the rest of those that got titles now would be in a pecking order of number 1 through 10. So even to wait around for an annual mandatory, those men would have to fight each other for that top spot, if not for the title. And we're not seeing that right now. Everybody is sitting and resting on their laurels. Huh? And Gary didn't fight at all this year. So it's like, if you're going to get him, yeah, he's got a little rust, right? Take a chance. And mind you, I'm not saying these things to be trying to take away from Gary, because, you know, he's in my Thunderous top 10. But I'm just saying, if you want for some movement to take place in the sport, people are going to have to start taking some risk. Otherwise, nothing is going to move. It's just going to be a lot of boats sitting in the dock, huh? Not going anywhere. So, but what are your thoughts on what I had to offer there, Reggie?
No, I agree with you 100%. But that's what I'm saying. They got to make these contracts. I think, in my honest opinion, I think Gary and them messed up that situation. But they could always reconcile that. Devin got that fight off the way. It's time for them to start opening that back up. That's all that has to happen. Open them negotiations up. Start and finish where y'all left off. Get it complete. Get a fight going. That's my only thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something that Dreezy KO said in the chat a little bit ago. He says, if Devin can't get the big fights, I want to see him rack up some defenses with Fortuna and Nakatani. Let me tell you something about that, Dreezy KO. If Devin goes into fights like that, he could find himself on the losing end of things very easily, and I'll tell you why. Fortuna is the type of talent that he could show up one night and surprise some people. He's a dangerous opponent like that. And when I say some people, I'm talking about guys like Gary, Devin, Garcia, Shakur, and as well as Tank and those guys. He's that type of fighter. He's good enough and has skills enough to be competitive. But if the guy who's facing him, one of the ones I named, is facing him and they're having an off night, or he gets off to a good start or something like that, that confidence could shrink in a fight like that, and he would be the type of guy that can take advantage of that. Now, you talk about Nakatani. Nakatani showed in his fight with Teofimo that he is not to be played with. And the thing about Nakatani is this. He's rangy. He has some attributes that are going to be difficult for any of those guys in that weight class. But he has a little bit more fighting spirit than any of them have. And that's a danger to all of them, because if he can last, he beats somebody's ass. Okay? And that's the thing. So I would rather he go Gary route than Nakatani first. Because again, if he's going to lose to somebody that is a respected champion and everything like that, not against a dark horse that is looking to make his name off of somebody. Because you put it like this: you go in there and you beat Gary, you fight Nakatani a couple fights later, because you have that confidence, you have that experience, you have something that's working for you. But Nakatani has, like I said, a fighting spirit that a lot of the guys in the division don't have right now. He's been displaying it. And he's also dealing with the fact that people disrespect him because he's from Japan. You see? And even in that, remember, I spoke about this once before. When a person is fighting for national pride, when their people are behind them, you know what I mean? That's the type of thing that can make a person get off the canvas and keep going, or raise their spirit in a tough, grueling match where somebody is going to have to take it to another level or something like that. Those are the type of intangibles that a fighter like that can bring into a match. So I don't want that to be misconstrued. You know what I mean? But yeah, before we move on to the next subject, Reggie, what do you think about that?
Wait, say that last part because you ended up breaking up on my end.
I'm sorry. I said before we move on, what do you think about that? What I said about he talking about Haney, you know, going that route with someone like Gary as opposed to Fortuna or Nakatani, because those are the kind of guys that if you get into that and you're not focused or whatever, they could upset you. But it's not that they're so good or anything, but they're competitive enough to, if you're having a bad night or something like that, it can go wrong for you with guys like that. But when you fought a guy like Gary and you've defeated him, your level of confidence in your own ability and everything is far higher than when you can go into a fight with those guys in the thereafter. I was just trying to make that comparison there.
Right. That's the part I missed. It was Nagatani that was the name you brought up. But no, he's a risky fighter, man. And I think he's better than what people view him as. Yeah. He's been giving everybody a tough shot. He made Teofimo rethink this whole boxing thing. And the guy has heart, man. It's going to take a lot to keep Nagatani up out of there. You have to turn the lights off on that dude to get him out of a fight. We've seen with the Felix. Who was that? What was his name? The guy he just recently stopped. What Nagatani did, and what Nagatani did against Teofimo. The guy is a difficult guy, just off his heart, his height, everything. He's being taught something well that a lot of people are overlooking. So it's not worth avoiding meaningful fights to taking on a Nagatani. You go in there against what's his name? Fortuna. You go in there against Fortuna and mess around and get hurt. Fortuna is a daring fighter who's going to try to give it his all. He may make it a nasty fight. You may come out there with an injury. I mean, who knows what Fortuna would do into a fight? And if you could, you could move around him by taking fights that pay more, that mean more, you go ahead and do it. Stay away from them guys, not taking these fights. You're going to put yourself in a situation where you got to face them guys. And it could turn out bad. And it will look bad for a guy who's viewed in such high regards as Devin Haney to take a loss to a guy like these two.
Absolutely. We got a question in the chat there, Reggie, where who is that? Michael Rogers is questioning that you should make a remark regarding what happened with that between the Devin fight with Gary and how he got messed up with the zone. You want to comment on that real quick? I'm gonna step away from the mic for 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. I think the thing that went wrong with the zone deal is that the zone has kind of locked him into a situation where, well, let me read that question first. It says, should explain how Gary messed up the Devin Haney fight when the zone had that venue locked in. The reason why I say Gary messed up the fight is that Gary went back and forth over the contractual issues. He didn't like the way in which things were put into the agreement, and they were trying to call it off. But right before that last minute, Gary ended up saying he had a revised contract because they're going back and forth almost on a daily basis when it was in regards to this. He wanted the contract sent back. No, matter of fact, they got one contract the day before. He stated that he saw it and they were supposed to sign it. When it was supposed to be emailed or faxed over, how they were supposed to get it from Devin Haney and them team, he was supposed to go ahead and sign it. They looked over it, like what they saw. The last second, he rejected the contract. Then he comes back with his own revised contract a few days later because no one heard from Gary for a while. He comes back with his own revised version of the contract that he read off to everybody on his Instagram Live. He was supposed to send that contract back over, and we never heard anything else from Gary Russell. And where's the conversations when it comes to Devin Haney as we speak of now? We don't hear none of that. We just constantly hearing the calls for Tank Davis. It's almost as if he wants Tank Davis, and it was almost like he didn't even want the Devin Haney fight to begin with, because he talked all this and that about taking on Terrence Crawford, where it was Terrence Crawford it was something about an offer. He threw out an offer to fighting Terrence Crawford about he'll take some money, to where when Crawford and the team offered someone a fight and they still was a low ball offer, Gary was like, we take it. And, Terrence Crawford hasn't played into the whole Gary Russell talk because of the, separation of weight classes. Devin Haney and him spoke out, we'll take it. What was Gary Russell's first words behind that? Oh, that Terrence Crawford thing was personal. So for you, Shawty, the price is going to be a little bit higher. And when they get in this price thing, he constantly made issues about price. Then when they got closer to where it seemed like DAZN was going to take the fight, then all of a sudden you had Batman and them talking about, no, it needs to be on pay-per-view or some other stuff they was talking about. That's why I said Gary Russell messed up that fight contractually going into it. Because once again, let me summarize as I leave this topic, is they came to the almost the finality of this back and forth public negotiation, where they sent over the contract. Gary and them stated they'll sign it in the morning. Didn't hear anything from them. They rejected. They said they didn't like it, and it was giving up on it. Then people made the suggestions. Once you drop what you want in it, and even Bill Haney got on there, you drop what you want in it. Then Gary comes back 2 or 3 days after that, goes on his Instagram Live, spoke about, here's the contract, what they had in it. He showed all of us, and we never heard anything from Gary Russell after that. But that's my thoughts and why I said it was on Gary.
Yeah, and appreciate you breaking that down with great detail, because, I didn't follow that very closely when it was going down. I just, for whatever reason, I wasn't even interested in hearing that, because I don't. The business of boxing is very ugly and dirty. And the more involved in that you become, the more the sport is uglier and uglier. And it takes away from even wanting to watch the action for me. So that's why I stick to, hey, the fight's signed. Let me, where do I tune in? But when you start talking about the business of it and everything, dude, somebody's always getting raked over the coals and screwed in boxing. Really, all the time. So, but yeah, I got one more thing I wanted to. Go ahead.
Let me just state to Mike 202 to answer his question. The thing with Bill Haney, what did Bill Haney do early on? Bill Haney did try to pull fast negotiations early on them. Doing what business types would do when they think someone ain't paying attention to contractual stuff. He did try to pull in some stuff. It was something about when Bill tried to sign him into like a fight deal option or something. They put options in it. That was the only thing. They ended up pulling that out, being it was an issue with Gary Russell. And that was the only thing. Other than that, there was no interference. They made every single concessions these guys were asking for, and at every step, Gary declined it. But OG, the only reason why I followed, because it started on Fred's show. It was one night, Gary on there, high-siding about what he did with what's his name, with Terrence Crawford. About, they asked about the Olympic camp thing, and Gary punched him. That's how all this escalated, was when Fred asked that question about what happened in the training facility when I think they were amateurs or training for the Olympics or whatnot. Gary spoke about how he punched him, and Gary talking like a big tough guy. This wasn't even Gary calling Terrence Crawford out or nothing at that time. And so it built up, and then you had H Money that called in and started calling Gary Russell all type of B's, and it escalated off from that conversation and that question. And then Terrence Crawford finds out about it the next day, and then you had Gary going on like, "Oh, shawty, I'll fight you for whoop whoop," whatever it was, of money one other fighter turned down. Then Devin Haynes came out, was like, "We'll pay you that." And that's how it all started. That's the reason why I follow. And then the other channels start picking it up, and it just grew. But yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, like I said, once again, thanks on that. This next issue I wanted to talk about a little bit before we close things out is, they're trying very hard behind the scenes to make this fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, man. It's like they're really going for it. They're talking about even maybe we could have it in Singapore or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think what's his name, Hearn would like to go back to where he held that rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. because those guys built that stadium up very quickly, and it was outdoors, and I could see that happening again. And who knows at the end of the day what crap load of money they made on that bout over there. But it had to be a lot. So, but this fight, Reggie, one of the reasons I think that they really want to make this fight is this is another case of them, both camps here in this instance, trying to act like Deontay Wilder doesn't exist. And at the end of the day, to perform in a manner of which, heavyweight titles are on the line, but the title that Fury has may have to be vacated or whatever, which again, is that beyond Tyson Fury doing? He's done that in the past, allowed himself to be stripped and suspended and everything else. So when you talk about this gentleman that, scruples and ethics and things like that may go off the wayside when it comes down to him. So this is a type of fight, and for whatever reason, the Joshua camp feels comfortable sacrificing what he has on the line to this man. And I say sacrificing because I don't believe that Joshua realizes how good a boxer Tyson Fury really is. And with the difficulties he had with Klitschko, and Fury outboxed Klitschko, and he was outboxing Wilder. So it's like the man has a skill set that it's going to take someone who has a better one to beat him. And he's also proven that just hitting him on his chin is not going to get him out of there either. So it's like, this whole thing could turn into some type of a zoo-like circus. And, the belts on the line, there might not even be for all the belts. It might be for a belt or two, because you've heard the rumblings that Joshua may be vacating something, maybe the WBO or whatever, but something. And if Fury doesn't want to face Wilder, and it's mandated that, hey, you have to either face the man or give up the titles, I could see Fury giving up the titles and just denying Wilder another shot, for a rubber match. So as you talk about this, it is not necessarily fair play here. It's like this is a different type of game of chess, where people have flying kings and all of that stuff. It's like, wait a minute, this ain't the chess that I know, understand? And I believe the sport of boxing is changing in that direction. These guys are undermining the essence of what the sport has been up to this point. And I see a number of the participants behaving in that way. It's not just in the heavyweight division. It's just as we were talking about the lightweight and junior lightweight divisions earlier. You're seeing so much of this, it's ridiculous. So that's what I have to say on it. And I just want to know what are your thoughts, Reggie?
Man, AJ looked like a mark, man. I mean, just when he talked this, all of a sudden, he's calling out people now. Now he's calling out Fury with no delay, no hesitation, going to anything. But you turned down $50 million from a nemesis that it may not be his nemesis, but it's a nemesis that boxing painted for him. They were the two top guys. Tyson Fury was an afterthought in the sport, and you ran from $50 million. Guaranteed money on top of everything else you could have made. Now you take Tyson Fury, based on how the challenges are getting much harder, you can't go down stepping too low because now he's circled in. He can't take the Joe Joyces, the level lower guys, and they defeat him. It looks bad on him. So he needs to reach up to the top to take in one of these dudes. What's the softer landing when he hits the canvas will be a Tyson Fury. And I think that's the decision he wants to make. He wants to test his luck because there's a possibility he can go in there and he can stop Tyson Fury. And, you know, being hit with that devastating punch that he knows Wilder has is what terrifies AJ. And that's the reason why he at the same time, he can maybe appear tough to whoever he appears tough to by calling out Tyson Fury. But it's just mighty odd that all of a sudden now they're calling out for the WBC champion when it's out the hands of Deontay Wilder. Like it's wild stuff. But he looks like he looks like the ultimate sucker on the planet. I think the people on Pluto probably looking at him like this sucker right here. But I don't think nothing of it. And I think he's gonna go in that fight and he's going make a huge mistake. He's fooled for Tyson Fury, in my opinion. He's major fool for Tyson Fury. It ain't gonna be none of that staying on the outside. He's not the same fighter since that Ruiz fight. He looks to avoid engagement, and it's gonna be hard to avoid that with Tyson Fury. His mobility, will that help him out? That's just to see, but he's gonna have to really get in here and try to bring a fight to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has too much height, too much weight for AJ to be sitting out there waiting. You ain't gonna be able to get to the guy, so you're gonna have to step forward to him. It's gonna be tough, man. I mean, but he's more comfortable, I believe, in the ring based on what he has watched. He's one of these dudes that observes what he wants to face, and he doesn't like what he's observed from Deontay Wilder. He feels more comfortable being in there if he is to take a defeat to Tyson Fury. I guess he's viewing Tyson Fury not being a guy who's probably able to embarrassing him and knocking him out, but he may end up fooling himself because I think his fragile, you know, his chin is so fragile that Tyson may have the ability to put a hurting on Anthony Joshua, put a real hurt on him. But I think AJ has delayed himself so much to where the walls have closed in on him, and he ain't got nowhere to go because now he got Joe Joyce coming from underneath. Who else is up under there? Ruiz is probably getting himself back into shape. He don't want to take that fight again. So your only two options is the two other guys that are up there with you. So he got to pick 1A, 1B, and he going to choose the one who holds the title right now. But it's a sucker move. $50 million is all that I think of when now all of a sudden they got heart to call people out. But that's my thoughts on that clown.
Yeah, what a piece of work both of those guys are at this particular time in the sport, man. AJ as well as Tyson Fury. Fight that I don't really care. The battle of the wash-ups, I'll call them. They'll have soap suds all over your screen when you watch them. But yeah, man. This, you know what? It turned out to be a pretty good stream, Reggie, even though I had that difficulty from the launch. I think it was just a matter of the system needed to be rebooted. I hadn't done it in a while. I know I keep saying I'm going to do it like at least once a week or whatever, once every week and a half. But I hadn't done it, and I added some new equipment. Shout out to I Am Ill Will, who was telling me about acquiring an audio interface, which will help, with the audio portion of the show. You can do some things with music and everything through it. And I did get it, and it was the latest thing that I had to download the software. And maybe because the computer, it didn't require a rebooting or restart after downloaded it, but I should have did it anyway, and that was a couple of days ago. So that's probably why I ran into some difficulties. But yeah, be able to do some nice things with the audio now with this interface. Got to get a hold of I Am Ill Will to ask him some questions about it, but I'm steady, improving the brand here, Reggie, trying to bring as much quality as possible to the output of the channel. Why don't you go ahead and give us some final thoughts and everything on the show. Let everybody know where they can find you. If you want, you can put your link for your channel in the chat to remind people to come and subscribe to you, because you're on a different channel now, and we want to get your numbers back up for you. So go ahead and do that for us real quick.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And once again, still under the name Boxing Conversation with Reggie Owens, but this is a new channel. I see some people that found the channel. They be like, where my wrench at? And I got to tell them, man, YouTube and Donald Trump me. I done got the Donald Trump out. So, but I'm back and I'm pushing the same kind of thing, but also doing more of a adding in beyond boxing. I'm political as heck, so I've been getting. It's the season right now, so a lot of political content, open content. We go on super late, so people in the central part of the country, eastern part, I may be on when it's 3 or 4 in the morning when you guys are on, all the way until think about 6 and 7 in the morning for East Coast residents by the time I go off. So we be on for a while, open panel. We just touch on whatever. We open the discussions on anything. Once again, the platform is open. I don't try to control what we talk about. Yesterday, we talked about Indians and treaties and sovereign citizens and having our opinions. No one's kicked off. I bring on people with varying views, try to bring on backwood folks, the hillbilly types, bring them on. Let's have a conversation. Let's engage. Let's see what we talking about. So I'm just all over the place. Plus, I'm doing book reading. So I got from Tank, the Ideal, through one of our other live streams, seeing books in the background. Like, you know what? Yeah, let's inject that, man, because I think it needs to be cool. I'm all about being intellectual about stuff. You can be yourself. You ain't got to be Poindexter the nerd to be intelligent. And my thing was making reading cool, because that's one of the things that we kind of within our, not just our community, America, period, but I come from my community, and speaking where people look down upon reading, they look upon anything to where you display that aspect. That display of intellectual abilities shouldn't be something that people learn once they're incarcerated. And I tend to get tired of that, where I see people tapping their full potential after spending years in incarceration. I think we need to avoid it, make it cool, change the way in which we reflect upon ourselves and look at ourselves in a higher regard. So I've been busting open these books and buying books. And like I said, as much as much knowledge as I had gained throughout life and many things I've studied, I'm not a person who reads the regular books that I read. So that Powernomics books, which was 2 books ago, I'm on my 3rd book now, was the first book I read from opening to close, from the front page to the end. And there's a lot of people who won't display that. There's no shame in what I speak. But I've been enjoying the heck out of these books and flying through them. So later tonight, probably go run grab some food. I'll be doing the chapter 2 of the Barack Obama's book, A Promised Land. And in this book, I learned something else that I want to study and get into. Is I never knew Chicago had a black mayor, Harold Washington. I'm still intrigued by that. And I lived in Chicago, but all I ever heard people talk about was the Daily. So now that's going to be my new little interest of studying more into Harold Washington. But that's my only thoughts.
Let me say this about Harold Washington, Reggie. I was in high school in my senior year, when he won the election here. And he was one of the most eloquent spoken, intelligent men and orators I had ever seen. When you think about that, you often think about people like Minister Farrakhan or even Malcolm X. For one, Malcolm had an exquisite way of expressing himself. Harold Washington was using words that would make you go to a dictionary or a thesaurus to look up what he was saying. And he took no shortcuts when it came to that. He was probably one of the finest at that I had ever seen for a person who was in politics. And I always remembered that about him. And it made me more versed in how to consider using words as a tool, not just as a means of expression, but as a tool, because the more refined that you find yourself being able to have, articulation and understanding of words and how words can move people a certain kind of way and make people think and shut people up and things like that. That was what his excellence was. And not only that, but one of the ones that stood out about him. But yeah, I remember Harold Washington very well, and was proud to have heard him. I remember my classmates in school. We walked into the school building that morning, and everybody was holding up the newspaper, the daily newspaper, when he had won, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune. They were holding the paper up. It's Harold, on the paper when he had won the election, man. It was amazing. He beat Jane Byrne, who was the first female mayor of Chicago, and in a runoff against her, and I think at the time it was Michael Bilandic, something like that. It's been a long time, I have to remember, but yeah, he split their votes and they got him in there, and he was an amazing representative of the city. Harold Washington was a special person, and I'm just sorry that they took him out, but he was there, and they couldn't stop that. He was there. But yeah, my thoughts about this show. We finally got it on track. Got people to tune in, and we've even toward the end of the last 15 minutes or so, we acquired a couple of thumbs down, Reggie. That means that we stepped on some toes, but I didn't hear anybody say ouch, so we ignore it, right? And the link for the merchandise, for Stormybman's merchandise, is down there underneath there. I put it up on the screen. I'm wearing my sweaty hoodie right now. It says Stormybman across the top there with the boxing gloves hanging from the tee. But that's, we're trying to move and shake and do some things around here. And I would like to kindly ask one favor from someone in the chat. It can be a combination of you. It could be one person. But I would like if one person could send like $1 or $2 super chat to see if my super chat is working now, because I've been working behind the scenes since my last live stream, and I want to see if it's finally working or not. If it's not, that means I'm going to spend this weekend trying to get the situation ironed out, because there's something happened when I started my merch store that it affected my super chat. So it's like I'm trying to figure that out, and maybe I have to put something in to do it again or something like that, but if it doesn't chime or whatever, that means I still haven't fixed it yet. So, and I see my man Reggie Owens put something in there. I did not hear anything, and it hasn't come up on the screen, so it is not done yet. Dang. Maybe okay. Yeah, it's not. But thanks, Reggie, man. I really appreciate you doing that. You didn't have to put that in, but you did it on your own accord. I appreciate you. We're working, man, trying to get these things worked out, iron out all the kinks and everything. But ever since I did the merch, it's like it's been affected by that. So I might have to go in and do something all over again with my Streamlabs. But yeah, this has been the Friday night chop session. Number 92. We're rolling almost at a hundo, as Blue Blood Sports likes to use that word, the hundo. And we were calling it Let's Get It Started, because we're kicking off the new year of 2021. And we got a lot of more for you guys out there as we talk the good sport of boxing, the sweet science as it's known. And we will be ready this time next week with some more content for you as we get ready for some more action in 2021. So, for my man Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, and thank you again for the super chat, brother. And for everyone that tuned in out there tonight, we hope we gave you a good one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Enjoy your weekend. We out of here. Special shout out to Michael Rogers out there in the Cash App for the $2 donation. He says, "You preaching." Thank you, bro. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for the Cash App, Michael Rogers.